Hello, how you doing? So, anyone who knows me knows I love to write poetry as part of my self-care and getting my emotions out in a way that maybe not everybody kind of knows exactly. I don't know. I feel like when you're writing poetry or you're doing art to get your feelings out, people can interpret it in so many different ways that it still feels, for me, like not everybody's gonna understand where the poem comes from, but maybe they can relate and connect. I feel like if you're a good writer, you make people feel, right? But if you are a great writer, you paint a picture with words. You don't just make somebody feel, you take them back to dreams and hope, to heartbreak and regrets, and you awaken something in them, and you have done more than your job as a writer if you can do that. I love writing. I'm always trying to improve my writing. I'm particularly into poetry, but that's not the only thing I write. Eventually, I want to write a kid's book about people with brain injuries for kids, but put in a way kids can understand and relate. From my experience of having a brain injury, but for now I just write poetry. I kind of want to write mystery stories too. I've always just liked writing. I journal a lot. But this poem is called The Broken Pieces of My Past. It says, "You let go, I held on, breaking my own heart every day, not a word to say. Silence speaks volumes, the distance between us growing daily. I felt love, care, and compassion. I'm left with hurt and pain. Who we once were, no longer who we are. Strangers staring straight ahead, secrets hidden in the dark, in the bed. The night is long, the day is short, the dark is upon me, the light hidden. Nothing left but time, wounds waiting to heal, memories faded, love no longer awakening, cursed and jaded." And I just wrote this because I couldn't sleep, and I wasn't in like a bad mood, but I wasn't in a great mood because I couldn't sleep, and I was frustrated, and I was feeling a little down. And those nights when I can't sleep, when you're just watching the clock tick, they really put me in this mood where I'm very reminiscing on the past, and I get a little down, That's when your regrets come to your head, and things like that, or the things you wished you'd done differently, the things you can't take back that you've said, and so much more. So I was kind of in a nostalgic, reminiscing, kind of down mood. I wasn't in like the depressed, but I wasn't in a great mood either. I'd had a great day the day before, but I decided to jot my feelings down as poetry because that's what I do as part of my self-care. And let me know if writing poetry helps you. I know this was like a short poetry reading. I'd like to share some other poetry with you guys that is very close to my heart. So this one's called "The Lady on the Tractor." Sitting there, eyes full of lust, watching all the passerbys in all her beauty on a gleaming green beast full of rust. The winds blowing through the fields, thoughts flying through her head of a life long gone, of the boy who earned her trust, a boy who long since grew into an old man, and her as young as the day she died, with a luminous glow about her pretty face, cheeks rosy red, watching the flowers grow, daisy and daffodils, planted on a hot summer day, laughing as a single crow spreads its elegant wings, wings as black as the hair on her head, waiting to catch a glimpse of him, her mind going back to summer, Days long past, days spent chasing him barefoot through the tall grass, jumping into a nearby lake and going for a swim, splashing at each other. As she waits, her mind sifts through other memories, memories dark and grim, memories best forgotten, and how through them all he never left her side. Not until the day she died did his adoring gaze leave her pretty face, his eyes always intently focused on her, a picture of her to this day proudly displayed in his wallet, and the praise, oh, the praise in his voice whenever anyone brings up her name. How could he could go on for hours telling stories about their life, about their firstborn and how hard that child was to raise. Her memory clings to him, and she holds on, appearing on an abandoned big green tractor waiting for her love, waiting by a house that burnt to the ground, a house overlooking a large field, the house where they had their first child and got married, sitting there just looking around, waiting for the sound of his voice, stuck between worlds, watching as everyone around her slowly changes, earthbound. The very love that once saved her, holding her hostage, she refuses to enter heaven's gates until the day they walk through it hand in hand. No matter how long it takes, she'll stay there waiting. I wrote that when I was a teenager, and it was kind of a sequel to an earlier poem, and the poem was called Boy with a Tractor, and this is the poem. It says, he was just a boy with a tractor. I was just a girl with a crush. Oh, what a rush. I still remember that day. I remember when we first kissed. I was so nervous, I nearly missed. I can see it all now. I can still remember the taste of his lips. I remember the feel of his fingertips. I remember the way he looked at me. I remember the long night talks. Oh, and those nightly walks. I still hear his laughter. Oh man, did it drive me wild. He was slowly bringing out my inner child. With him, I could be myself. I could feel myself begin to unwind. I was slowly losing my mind. I would have given him the world. I'd do anything to make him smile, if only just for a while. He was just a boy with a tractor covered in rust. I don't know how he earned my trust. Man, did I love him. Why, you'd never understand. I loved holding his hand. He had me living on the edge, pouring my drinks a little stronger, dancing just a little longer. Oh man, what a boy. He was so fine. I wanted so much to make him mine. Oh yeah, he was just a boy with a tractor. I was just a girl with a crush. Oh, what a rush. I feel like, it's rare that you find connections in life that stick with you forever. I know people come and go in life. And so those are 3 of my poems. I hope, maybe one of them you're able to connect to. I'll read more of my older ones. Those 2 about the tractor were written in 2017 according to the notes on my phone, because I have an iPhone, and even when I get a new one, it transfers my old poetry into the notes and it saves them. So I have like a bunch of poems from 2017 I would like to share with you, as well as current poems, because I still write poetry to this day. Let me know what feelings that poetry evoked from you, what it made you think of, what you liked about it, what you maybe didn't like so much. But yeah, I wrote those poems, and one of them was inspired by somebody who at the time was like my best friend, my other half, and he meant a lot to me. And he was a mechanic who liked to fix tractors, and he lived on this dirt road, and that is somebody I think that will always stay with me even if I never see him again. Which is, I think, a weird experience. Like I said, people come and go. But those are memories that will always stick with me. Like, I used to love West Gardiner. I mean, it's a very rural area. There was this little lake we'd go down and we'd all jump into it. And, I was more inspired by just the feeling of summer love, of And then, of course, is a love that's like long lasting. Like the second poem, I think was inspired a good deal by my grandfather on my father's side. He was a mechanic and a welder, and he loved my grandmother. Like you couldn't doubt that. Like he absolutely loved her, and he was always there for her until she passed away. She had a motorcycle accident before my brother, around the time my brother was born or before it. And she was never, I guess, the same after. But I remember she taught me to play Skip Boo, and she'd always say I was cheating at it. She accused everyone was cheating if she didn't win. And she'd throw the cards. She's like my mother. My mother throws the cards if she loses. Maybe because we're all a little competitive. But my grandfather always had this love for my grandmother, and that's, I think, what inspired the sequel to the poem. Is a love that maybe started as a summer love in the first poem, but became this long-lasting love in the second poem. But you can definitely like feel the fact that it's inspired by a more rural area with like more fields and grass and tractors and that kind of vibe, which I always like that kind of vibes, even in books now. Like, I love A Little House on the Prairie. That's a book I will always recommend. I love the TV show, too. I watched it with my Nana growing up. But yeah, so for this Self-Care Saturday, take time to spend watching a show you love. Take time maybe writing some poetry. Take time reading some poetry. Sometimes I find poems that I strongly can relate to. And they make me feel so much better. One of my favorite poems is called Tillsbury Town. It was written about Gardiner by Ed. I want to make sure I get his name right. So let me Google that for a minute. It was written by Edwin Arlington Robinson, and he was actually born in Gardiner. He later got to have an office at the White House where he wrote his poetry, but Tillsbury Town was written about Gardiner. Edwin Arlington Robinson did not have a great experience in Gardiner, but I could go more into that later. Like, his brother married the girl he loved, and that was very hard for him. He had to watch that and see that. He was friends with actually Laurie Richards, who is another poet from Gardiner, who actually had her work shown at the Chicago World's Fair back in the day. Just to throw in a bit of history here. I love history. So definitely take time to read. When I read Tillsbury Town, I connected with it so deeply, and it made me feel so better because Edwin Arlington Robinson really felt like an outsider in Gardiner. He really did, and I felt the same way as a kid. So when I felt I could relate to that, I was like, okay, so I'm not alone in this feeling. And it just, I loved the poem so much. But thank you for listening to the poetry I've written, and taking the time out of your day to do that. Definitely put your feelings on paper. It always makes me feel better. I actually spend time writing letters to people that aren't here anymore. They're either passed away or we're just no longer talking. And in a journal I have, because it makes me feel better. I tell them about my day. I tell them how I feel. I tell them things like that. And that's a part of my self-care that's like big for me. It makes me feel connected still to those people, and that helps me cope. I think it definitely helps me cope grieving after the passing of my Nana. Was writing her these letters in my journal. Even if I knew she'd never read them, I felt like I could still, like she was still there. And like she still was hearing what I had to say, even if she wasn't here. And that helped me through that grieving process. And I've done that a lot, like when people have passed, or like when a friendship has ended that I valued, simply because it helps with that grieving process. So let me know what you think of my poetry if you want me to read more. I have poems written about when I was bullied in school and when I was in dark places, and then I have more light-hearted poems. Let me know what kind of poetry you'd like to hear next. I think poems are kind of like a window into how somebody's feeling. It's a window into their mind and everything. So I really like poetry. Let me know if you like poetry, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye, everyone.